What's up, Bears fans? Your boy Coach T with Chicago Bears 360 back with another live show for you today. Listen, we have a special guest on the program. I'm excited. First time on the program. And then we get to class up the program a little bit. All these knuckle draggers on the show all the time. Get to class up the program a little bit. We have Miss Taylor Dahl on the program. I'll let you give her ask when she comes in, but we get to talk about Bears football, draft, the off season, all the things related to Bears football, that and so much more. Y'all know what's next. We're going to cue the intro. Mr. J Maestro, let's go.
Life like chess move to pieces, you know I roll in silence. On the road to them Benjis, I fill my teeth with diamonds. The Lord done put me through some tests so I can learn my lesson. They take advantage when you cool, I can't control aggression. We go back and forth talking, so who we really blaming? Tell me to change, I'm not myself, and then you start complaining. Can't understand your situation if you had a main. But you caused me for some shots, we barely knew it.
And just like that, we're back, Bears fans. Welcome to the program, Taylor Dahl.
Hello, thanks.
Yeah.
I feel like we planned this so long ago now. It popped up. I was like, oh, we're here.
Yeah, it snuck up on us pretty fast. And shout out to Taylor for having a great sense of humor, by the way. I kept when I was reaching out, we were setting this up. I was like, so what name do you want me to use? She was like, no, that's my name. Use my name.
Oh, it's okay.
Where are you based out of?
People think it's my radio name all the time.
Yeah. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, when you're getting the business, you realize, hey, some people, this is their radio name. So where are you based out of? Give the people your ask where to find you and all that good stuff. You got a lot of great stuff going on. We want to make sure we let the people know where to catch up with you.
Yeah, thank you. So my Twitter is at Taydal1010XL. Obviously very active on there. My podcast is called Making Monsters. You'll find that we kind of just recently had to pivot a little bit because we were through SB Nation. SB Nation cut a lot of their podcasts. So we've kind of started doing a solo thing. So a lot of them, if you're looking for older podcasts, you can check on Windy City Gridiron, but everything moving forward will be on Second City Gridiron. And most of my stuff is on YouTube also. But you'll find it on all the podcast platforms, anything when it comes to any way you'll listen to your podcast, you'll find mine. But it's called Making Monsters. And mine is my premise of Making Monsters, especially during the season, is all about kind of getting to know the players. So I talk to coaches and moms and dads and brothers and high school coaches and trainers and all of these things, and kind of get the path of how the guys got, from the beginning of football to now the NFL and the Chicago Bears. So it's really fun because you learn a lot of the backstory aside. We talk X's and O's, but we also talk the fun stuff. And so it's been really fun the last almost 2 years now that I've been doing that. And then I also work at 1010XL, which is the flagship station of the Jaguars. So I also cover them. But I host a show called Helmets and Heels down here. We are the first all-women sports talk show in the nation. That's a daily show. So it's been really fun this last month being able to kind of like open the gates into that. But yeah, so a little bit.
No, that's super cool, pioneering that space, right? So all women's football based podcast. I make sure I have the wife tune into that because she's always asking me football questions. Of course, you know what I'm saying? I can't help but explain, like go into detail with crazy schematics, right? So it gives a good starting point. But listen, I want to segue because Making Monsters is probably a great place to start coming out of the draft, the 2024 draft. How do you think Ryan Poles did with this draft?
I liked it. Caleb Williams, that everyone knew that was going to happen. I think it's been a while since we've assumed that it was going to be Caleb Williams, and most of us, even myself, who was more of a pro keep Justin, really started to accept the fact that it was happening. Started watching a lot of film. I did a ton of podcasts on Caleb. So by the time it happened, I was ready. I'm super excited to see, honestly, what Caleb can do on the Bears, but also just because of the situation he's coming to. And that goes to pick 9 for me. I was shouting Rome Odunze. Like, I wanted Rome Odunze so bad. I truly didn't think it was going to happen. Like, I was like, somebody's going to trade up ahead of us and take him. because he's just, to me, and I was very vocal about this. Some people call me crazy. I wanted him over Marvin Harrison. I wanted him over Malik Neighbors. To me, he's the number one receiver I wanted. Some of it comes to other stuff like Marvin Harrison, which we're seeing recently. To me, it's more of an attitude thing that I didn't really completely love. And same with Neighbors. I heard a lot of negative things around Neighbors from the combine of people that I knew. And it was opposite with Rome Odunze. Everybody said he was one of the most, like, the best interviews they did, one of the funnest, like, you could joke around with him and he could go back and forth. And I love that. I think that's the type of energy we want on the Bears. And it's just really fitting and meshes with some of these other guys. And then obviously we saw all this stuff, like him and Caleb were already familiar. We saw them throwing together. They were on a plane together. They're going back and forth on social. So it all kind of clicked really well. So when Atlanta said Michael Penix, I was like, oh my God, we're about to get Rome Odunze. This is insane. I heard some rumors, and I know other people did, that Ryan Poles was kind of talking about moving up because he started panicking a little bit about if Odunze was still gonna be there. And that just shows how high he was on their boards too. And then past that, I honestly like what they did. You only have 4 picks. I think a lot of people assumed they were going to grab another pick in some way. They just weren't quite sure how they were going to be able to do it. And Ryan Poles is just masterful. Like, he's able to do it in a perfect time. You address the offensive line, which I don't think it's someone we're going to see right away, but I do think it's definitely a depth piece that they've needed. We've seen how many injuries have affected our offensive line the last couple of years. So to have someone there that, number one, can play multiple positions, can help you out if someone goes down, but also that you're developing for the future, I think is really important. And then I think when we're talking about punter, I know a lot of people criticize this. I personally liked it. I think Tory Taylor is a game changer. He's the perfect guy. And Ryan Poles said it on Pat McAfee yesterday, where it's just like, it's intimidating almost for the offenses, because the opposing team offense is like, well, if we can't convert, if we can't score, now they're, this punting game turns into this whole other situation. They're getting pinned down in the 5 and the 10, and it affects so many things. But I also think it's something he could possibly do like with the new kick return rules. I feel like a guy like him would fit even better, just because he's such a big guy and Cairo's small. We love Cairo, but he's a little guy, and I feel like someone like Tory Taylor could even take kickoffs to a next level. It'll be interesting to see if he does those. So I love that pick, and then being able to trade back in and get Austin Booker too. I think that very underrated. But at the moment that happened, I was like, heck yeah, Ryan Poles. So I think I liked it. Obviously, I would have loved to get. There's a couple other positions that I feel like we needed to address. A lot of that is maybe interior defensive line. I feel like we still don't have like a true 3-tech guy, which I think maybe they'll try and sort some of that out. But other than that, I mean, I think we're looking at a team who has massively improved even from a year ago.
Absolutely. Very competitive. I want to jump back to what you were saying about Rome Odunze, because I think Rome Odunze, I was actually on the opposite end of it, admittedly. Go ahead and throw Rotten Tomatoes at me in the chat. 360 years. I was on the opposite end of it. From a schematic standpoint, I wanted a burner. I wanted a true fire burner, and somebody that was going to be taken seriously as a deep threat, schematically, because I wanted to be able to force defenses out of what they can do well. But after having certain people on the show, it kind of came to accept, okay, Rome probably is going to be the most diverse. He could do that. DJ could probably play that role. We do still have a few other guys that could act as runoff guys to keep, defenses honest and keep them in a too high safety look, so it can open up things underneath. But I think what probably pushed me over the edge with Rome Odunze is the part that you talked about with his level. It's not, and I hate the whole well-spoken thing. That's just a thing I hate. It's a pet peeve of mine, but it's a presence about him, right? It's a natural kind of leadership aura about him that he carries in not just his interviews, not just how he speaks, but it's like a quiet, like I've been here before type deal. Like It's crazy to me. Like he gives off an aura that's next level. My wife calls it the ism, that it factor. Is that kind of what you're speaking about when you think about Rome?
Yeah, and that's why, like, I did several podcasts on Rome Odunze this offseason. Number one, I just thought it was one of those targets that could be there at 9, so I talked a lot about that. I also, like I mentioned, loved him. And when we go back to the type of receiver he is, the reason I love Rome Odunze on the football field is because he can do everything. And that, I mean, he led the college football in contested catches last year. If you want a guy that's going to go up and get the ball, it's going to be Rome Odunze. He was successful on all levels of the field, short, intermediate, deep. He is a really good route runner. He has a burst coming off. He's still quick. He has hands. You hardly ever saw him have any issues with last couple years. We probably don't want to see any for a long time.
No,
and then also, like, he's tough as hell. And I don't know if a lot of people realize he played with like broken ribs and a punctured lung and still was able to have almost 700 yards during that time, 6-7 touchdowns, I think, during just the period of time that he was played through injury. So that's another thing. You want guys, we talk about availability is the best ability, and we've seen a lot of times this last few years that we just didn't have that. So to have a guy that you know is going to battle through things and still be able to be successful, he can be all over the field. But then when we go back to that personality side, everybody I talked to about Rome was like, he's going to be one of your favorite people by the end of the season. Like,
right.
That's just his personality. He's great with media.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously for people like us who cover the team, it's nice to have people that you can kind of goof off with, that you know will give you serious answers. That's not going to, storm off if they don't like a question. And Rome's that guy. He's going to be honest with you. He's going to be blunt. He'll give you some fun, quirky answers, go back and forth, give you a hard time a little bit. And that's what all this stuff I heard about him is, just how fantastic he is. And not only towards media, but to his teammates, how good of a teammate he is, I've heard. And that's all of the things they kind of pointed to when they were talking about Rome Odunze. And one of the guys I did the Rome podcast with, his name's Roman Tomashoff, and he's covered Washington for a long time. So I talked to him many times about Rome and some of the other Washington players that potentially the Bears could have got, obviously, in Olu and some of those other guys. But he ranted and raved and was like, I promise you, you are going to love this kid. And the moment we drafted him, he texted me and he was like, I'm so happy for you. You have no idea. You guys are going to fall in love. And I was like, I'm already in love. Some of these other people may need a little help.
Super cool. Yeah, I think they have he and Caleb have a yin yang type of thing going on, where it's like Caleb's probably going to be more of the extrovert, outspoken in the good sense, right? Forthcoming. And then maybe Rome provides that structure, somewhat introvert, but still, you know what I'm saying, like you said, very professional in terms of his communication. But let's go back to Caleb, because, you know what I'm saying, Caleb seems to be the type of person. Start with I was obviously adjusting guy. The adjustment period was what it was. My biggest thing with Caleb, or the turning point for me, was the pivot interview, right? Just the insight and understanding how long he's been on this journey, and really how long he's been adulting, right? Yeah. From having to stay in an apartment, by himself. His dad shared the story this week. That's the clip of the story this week where, he was texting the young lady, and the young lady was like, call me back or whatever. And it was after hours. And his dad was like, I was waiting to see, he wasn't supposed to be on his phone or whatever. And the young lady was telling him to call him back or whatever. I guess she wanted to have a little cupcake time. And Caleb was like, no, I got to get up. I got to train tomorrow. Like stories like that, they resonate. They hit home. They let you know, how serious this guy is about football. But the other part is what I love about, or what I'm growing to love about Caleb is, he doesn't shy away from the moment. The 8 Super Bowls as a goal, not running away from the goal, the beat CJ Stroud record, all that stuff. I like it. But let me ask you this question, because it's already out there. Let me ask you, is there a line where is it, and especially for Chicago, is it a place where you can go and take it too far, where you're like, what I'm saying, it's too in our face, like, because I'm trying to ask myself that question this week, because at some point it's time to start putting on the pads and go to work, right? And we want to see the work, not just not all the emoticons in the audibles, right? So yeah. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that if he wins, Nothing matters. If
Right.
Caleb comes in and wins football games, nothing else is going to matter in this city. And you know, like how desperately Chicago fans have just been wanting to win, but also wanting a quarterback that we can talk about in the realm of being one of the best in the league. And we had glimpses of where people kind of talked about that with Justin, but it just never quite hit the level where people were like, yes, this definitely is a top, 5 quarterback. He was always kind of like, he could be, but there's still so much work. And I feel like we've always had those guys. And so for Caleb, I think it'll be interesting because it's definitely his personality is his personality. And at the pivot, he's very open about that. He's open up about, his emotions and the times he's cried and all of these things. And some people are going to love that. And some people are going to hate that. But I think at the end of the day, if he's winning football games, most of the people won't care about it. I think the interesting thing for me with Caleb is because, we can hear all of this, and he's great. He's active on social media. He retweets fans, and he's, every player that was drafted, he was tweeting at him, and he's just that guy. And that's everything I've heard about him too. Is just we heard criticisms during the offseason about maybe he wasn't the best teammate. That was kind of thrown out the window pretty quickly by coaches, by fellow teammates of like, no, he's been fantastic. So it'll be the interesting thing to me will be when we're watching Caleb and how he really does do in those bigger moments. Because we saw last year, obviously, that USC didn't have the season that most people thought they were going to have. It wasn't Caleb. It was a lot of the surroundings kind of affecting things. Right. But we saw certain moments where it felt like a little bit of weakness showing when, we saw him not shake hands after one of the games. We saw the crying. We saw the moments of him walking off the podium when he was upset. Those things can't happen now. He's going to have to be able to talk to the media afterwards and, talk about what went wrong. It's not going to be perfect. He's a rookie quarterback. There's still going to be bumps. So that's what's going to be interesting to me is when things may get a little tougher, if they're not starting as fast as maybe he wants, what is his reaction in those moments? And that's where I think you're either going to see like, okay, this guy could be, truly the future and leader, or there'll be some question marks, I think, if he can't handle those moments.
I liken Caleb to a creative, right? Right brain personality, extrovert, right? So those the creatives. I'm married to a creative. I got another creative in my house that live with us, and then I have probably my middle child is a creative. And they tend to kind of, wear their emotions on their sleeve, so to speak. Like they're very creative and artistic and stuff like that. And that's the mechanism that allows them to be who they are. They see and feel everything.
Yeah.
But my concern, you make a great point. You know what I'm saying? Is there a time? Is there opportunity? Or do you have the reins on that? Can you compartmentalize that and be able to focus, especially how it goes with the press room? There's not a whole lot of time between post game and the time you have to be on that podium, and your emotions are raw, and how that comes off. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I've always been, even when, because I've gotten inbox messages from other podcasts, bigger podcasts than mine, was like, hey, did you get this story about this, that, and the other? And I'm like, I don't want to focus on that here, not this platform. It's about the schematics. I'm more concerned about absolutely the results on the field, but also, as I told my audience, I'm really focused on the game plan, the program that Shane has set up for him, and the development plan he has for Caleb, because I believe that's going to be critical to, that's going to be kind of the precursor to the conversations we're having, right? If we don't have a good program in place, it puts him in a position to have to come back after the game and explain why this didn't happen or why that didn't happen. Yeah. Right. What do you think about the conversations about, Caleb being in the best situation of any NFL rookie #1 draft pick ever?
Yeah, I think that's why the Bears were just in such a unique situation this last year. And that's why it was, to me, such a difficult decision when it came to Justin Fields and Caleb, because the Bears, when you go back and you're talking about, they gave up draft picks for Jay Cutler. They gave up draft picks for Mitchell Trubisky. They gave up draft picks for Justin Fields. Then you get handed the number one pick by the Panthers, and it just so happens to be a quarterback coming out of college that is one of the highest talked about, highest rated, highest talked about, most the next generational word that has been tied to this guy. And it's you look at that and you're like, this is pretty crazy because no teams usually have that. No teams are usually picking one that just won 7 games and are probably 3 plays away from winning 10 games last year, honestly.
Right.
And then have the number one pick and have the potential to get this quarterback that everybody's been talking about for years now. And so for me, I think that I'm glad we finally have this quarterback to where he is coming into a situation where he has wide receivers, multiple wide receivers that are play at a really high level, multiple tight ends that play at a high level, 2 running backs that I believe in can be really, really good running backs. An offensive line that has been worked on. You know, a lot of people say it still needs some help. I agree. I would like another interior piece personally, but it's better than what we've seen in recent years. You have a defense who we saw start going ham at the end of last season. So if that can continue on, just imagine. And it's so fun to think about that. But back to what you were saying when it's how important the developmental side is, because that's been such an issue with the Bears. And it's not just at the quarterback position, but a lot of positions, especially offensively, they just haven't been able to develop these guys right. So it's going to be huge on Shane Waldron because not only is he taking this offense that has a ton of weapons and it has pretty much everything he needs. Even so much we talk about his 2 tight end sets and all of the things he likes to, create play action off of certain things. And so it's going to be fun, and it's going to be one of those offenses that can be really, really quick and fun and exciting to watch. But you want him to develop these guys right. And you want Caleb, yes, being put in the right situation, but you also want Caleb being – we know the knocks on Caleb. He holds the ball too long. What was the knock on Justin Fields? He held the ball too long. Caleb had a ton of fumbles in college. Can't have that happen. Those are things that we're going to need to see Shane Waldron develop. If those 2-3 knocks on Caleb can be fixed and kind of worked on with Shane Waldron, then I think we're looking at an offense that could be one of the best ones in the league. And let's just say next year probably, because we'll have some growing pains this year.
Absolutely. I hope so. I like your point, all of your points, but I especially like the point on offensive line. I've been taking a hard look at this offensive line and their approach to it. I've been saying this for the last couple of years. I believe Ryan and Ian and Simo probably believe in their ability to develop or find offensive linemen better than any of the other 31 teams in the league. For Shane, as far as Shane is concerned, I had a chance to catch a little bit of Tim Jennings on 670 the other day, and they were talking about different formations and sets with the weapons we have. And I do believe Rome comes in as wide receiver number 3. In however it comes out, we have 3 valid wide receivers, and it kind of forces Shane to have to show some things that he hadn't done before. He's a Big 12, 13 personnel guy, as you pointed out. So it's going to cause him to have to evolve. And I think the question they were asking, Tim was, what would you do with all these weapons the Bears have? And he was kind of, throwing out, hey, maybe go through some 0-1 formations or some 10 personnel formations. And not to be a contrarian, but I believe styles make fights. You got a young quarterback. I think that's the opposite of what we need to do early on with Caleb. I think early on, Shane needs to show the old Shane and evolve it into, you know what I'm saying, this multiple, because we have the ability. We're going to be very multiple in capability, but I think what the discipline he's going to have to show in reeling things back for Caleb is going to be probably his biggest test. That's my thing, right? I'm, former offensive coordinator. The hardest thing to do is not for you not to go out there and say, let's try everything. I got all these toys. That's the hardest part. You have to stay connected and in tune and making sure the entire unit is moving together. How do you feel? How do you see the personnel usage, especially with our new favorite guy, Rome, coming into play? And does frustration set in with the fan base if they're not seeing the electric plays and passing numbers early on?
Yeah, and So a couple things. Number one, if you think about, if we go back a couple years, Rome Odunze would probably be wide receiver 1 on the team we had a few years ago.
Right,
So to
right.
talk about a guy like Rome Odunze being wide receiver 3 right now is honestly, it's a little
It's
wild.
crazy. Yeah.
But
That's
I agree with you though, because I think that they are going to. One of the things I talked to this guy Eric Eager. He is the CEO of it's a new outlet called Sumer Sports. He used to work for PFF, left PFF, started this new outlet, and it's pretty much what PFF does, but they've created it for GMs and coaches to use a little more rather than PFF is kind of for us, and so I've talked to him a lot, and so it's a very analytical how certain things work for certain people, and he named two quarterbacks / 2 coaches that. And the reason we've seen these guys being developed so well, and this is Jordan Love with obviously the Packers, and then Tua Tagovailoa in Miami. And he just mentioned how like the reason it works, the reason that these guys don't have to be a top 5 quarterback, but they can still win football games is because the coaches, when they're calling plays in the beginning, had an easy button for them and they knew it, and that's fine. And he was like, it's not pretty. It's not these offenses that you want to watch doing all these flashy, crazy, fun things that kind of maybe the Niners do, but what they're doing is they have this safety blanket for these quarterbacks in the beginning, because then that way they are able to develop maybe some of the things that aren't as strong, some of their like weaker traits. So in these moments, they're like, all right. And a lot of that is like the short intermediate passes, that 5 to 15 yard passes that you don't all the time love. You want to see those deep balls. You want to see them launch them to DJ 40 yards down the field. But sometimes creating these chances in midfield, and and he kept saying the easy button was the word he was saying, and he's like, Mike McDaniel's a genius with it, because that's how he's got this offense with Tua to work so well, and why they collapsed in the postseason, because he didn't run the same offense. They try to get a little too flashy, a little too fancy, and so I do think we're going to see a little toned down version of Shane Waldron's offense at first. And then I think we'll gradually start to see things open up. And then once Caleb is more comfortable, once these weapons really start to form this connection that, obviously he's already been throwing with DJ. He's already been throwing with Rome. Keenan Allen and him. Keenan's at his pro day when they were at USC. So at least there is a little bit of familiar. But I think we're going to see this gradual build to the Shane Waldron offense that we know. And he did the same exact thing with Geno Smith. Geno is the guy that you kind of have to, he's not some top tier quarterback, but he made him look like a top tier quarterback in certain moments because he was able to game plan around his strengths. And I think that's going to be the perfect thing for Caleb when it comes to this offense, honestly.
You essentially define for me what I use on this show is as the definition of development. You know what I'm saying? From a coach's perspective, that is development. So what I would do at the high school level, and this, no matter what team I get, essentially, and this is a coaching ism. That's why it's the discipline of coaching, especially with offense. You start with 101 with the idea of saying whatever your target is by the end of the season to get to this. For your quarterback, it's incrementally giving him bits and pieces throughout the season and slowly integrating into the whole offense. So, one of the examples you use briefly is the one I use all the time. And when you hate using Green Bay as an example, but I'm enamored by Mike LaFleur. I hate everything else Green Bay, but you know what I'm saying? You're a coach. You have your crushes. And Mike did a tremendous job taking Jordan Love from the Jordan Love we faced week 1 to the guy we saw in the playoffs versus Dallas. And then I got to adopt this. I'm going to give you credit for it the first time, or whoever you gave it to you, the easy button. Everything in that first game was the easy button. Let me get you to 3rd and 3, 3rd and 2. I may run it. I may ask you to throw the ball here, but I'm not asking you to do 3rd and 8, 3rd and 12. That's part of the strategy for the Bears. We want to try and get him in those situations. But as far as Matt is concerned, Matt doesn't require him to do it, or didn't require him to do it early. And then he tested some way along the line throughout the season to see if he was prepared for that. But that's exactly what we want to see for Caleb. And I've identified weeks somewhere between week 12 and 17 where we open it up a little bit, especially if we're in play for the playoffs, that we allow him to stretch his wings a little bit and go out there, you know what I'm saying, sling it around a little bit. You described it perfectly. The audience here has heard this stuff before, so you know what I'm saying. They know you know what you're talking about when we talk about, you know, the development cycle, and the slow ramp up, the slow incremental implementation of the offense. I love hearing that because it's really confirmation, right, of the things we've already been discussing here. What are your expectations? Because a lot of the fans are afraid to put a number on it when it comes to this team. I think this, you know, like you said before, we could, you know, 2-3 more games. We're in the playoffs last year. I think this is a you know, wild card team. You know, if we implement those things the right way, what are your thoughts? You know, win wise, playoff wise, maybe a stat line for Caleb. What are you thinking in terms of expectations?
Yeah, and I try not to be like too crazy with it, but it's really hard to look at this roster and not say like they should win 10 games easily.
Right.
I joke with people where I'm like, Tyson Bagent could win 6-7 games with this roster. I mean, that's just how I truly feel because of everything. When you look at all the weapons they have, when you look at the defense and just the way the defense clicked later in the season, they were getting the turnovers. They were finally getting to the quarterback. And I would expect all of that to take a next step up too, because you've got guys like Javon Dexter, who now has a season under his belt. And you really saw him start to get comfortable down the stretch. Jalen just got paid. Jalen's going to want to, you know, show off the way he shows off. We're seeing Kyler Gordon and Jaquan get more comfortable. Tyreek Stevenson started looking so good towards the end of the season. So it's like you look at all these players, and it's really hard to look at this roster on paper and not think that they could win 10 games. And the Bears have an easy schedule. The way the season ended up panning out and the way the schedule they were given, they have an easier road to being able to do that. The one thing that's interesting to me is the division's not easy. Obviously, we know the Packers. We haven't beat the Packers since 2018, so you've got to break that streak at some point. And until they do it, I'm not going to be that person that's like, oh, they'll sweep the Packers this year, because I'm like, let's just win one. Let's just get one under our belts. The Vikings will be interesting. Obviously, there's what exactly they're going to do with quarterback. Are they going to start a rookie right away? Are they going to gradually put him in? Lions offense, and they did a ton on their defense to fix some things. And so to me, the scariest part is the division. So if you can come out of that division with even a split record, there's no way you shouldn't have 10 wins by the end. But I do think a lot of it falls on Caleb. How ready is Caleb? How much does he kind of handle some of those moments? And this is going back real quick to one of the things that, when you're talking about giving him the easy button, what we did with Justin Fields way too much is put him into situations where he had to be the guy to make some massive, crazy, phenomenal, magical play, or it would die. We can't put Caleb in those situations all the time. You can't expect this young quarterback to come in, because also he's the same type of player when it comes to Justin Fields, of that hero ball type of guy. Right. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes that gets you a 30-yard run down the sideline for a touchdown. Sometimes that leads to a fumble. Sometimes that leads to a bad interception. Sometimes that leads to getting injured because you're kind of trying to do too much in a certain situation. We don't want to do that to Caleb, and I truly think that's where we failed Justin the most, is we made him do too much in too many situations. There's no reason that he should have been battling at the end of the Denver game to try and win. There's no reason he should have been battling at the end of that Lions game or Cleveland game. When you have the leads, you do, and he had to. So then he had to play hero ball, and then people are mad that he turned the ball over. But I was like, what do you want him to do? Like, he has to make these big, massive plays. And so I think that's going
tough
to be
situations.
So it's going to be interesting to me how well Caleb handles that, and how much they take away from, like, how much they don't make him do that. Don't make Caleb be the magic. And I know we'll see a little bit. He has those crazy sidearm throws, and he can scramble, and he can run, and he can do all that stuff. We're going to see that a little bit, but don't make him have to come back and win you games after he's put 25 points on the board, 24 points on the board. So that'll be interesting. I don't know what a stat line would look like. I will tell you that to break every rookie quarterback record in Chicago, it's going to be real easy. He has like less than a touchdown a game, and I think like 150 yards a game, and he passed every other Bears rookie quarterback for their first season. So that won't be hard to do. And then, to be completely honest with you, I could even see him breaking the other records in year one. I mean, if he has anywhere close to the season that scouts and that all of these drafting analysts and everything say that Caleb can be, if he has anywhere close to that, we could be seeing him getting closer, hitting that 4,030 touchdown season. And it's not that hard to believe with the weapons you have on offense now.
Yeah, I love putting it out there and going for it. Especially from the fan standpoint. As we start playing ball, it's just the old coach in me. I'm going to want to hear less of it from the player. And I still believe realistically we're going to see those moments. He's going to have the occasional. He's going to show his rookiness, if you will. He may have a fumble. He may have an interception. Well, I know he's going to have that stuff. Like, as long as we see a imbalance of flashes of both, I think it bodes well for his future. And I agree with you. Just the one thing I know immediately he won't have on his shoulders is one, having to overcome the offensive coordinator, like having to overcome. And listen, I'm a play designer, play caller. I just couldn't. It's hard for me to imagine putting my players in a position where they have to overcome me. That's crazy to me. So, and I hate to harp too much on the Justin Fields part of it because I feel like we're ready to move on. But something interesting came out this week in the Pat McAfee conversations, and it really wasn't so much what he said as much as my friend over at the Windy City Breeze and ESPN 100, Pat Designer, said coming out of what he got out of Ryan Poe's appearance on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. He said that, based off of what Ryan said yesterday, that he basically had eyes on Caleb, you know what I'm saying, the whole time. He just needed to confirm the personality, the personal, the off the field stuff before they went all in. And quite honestly, I don't have a problem with that part, right? I know we went through Bears, quote unquote, the uncivil war, stuff like that, in the off season. I don't have a problem with that, but I think to a degree, coming out and saying that and confirming that actually, and even if it was, you had your guy in mind from the beginning, I think it's a little bit. It gives you a little bit of closure and acceptance of the whole situation. Where I get kind of, upset a little bit is where people have to go all in on and say they have to make Justin terrible to make Caleb look good. I think it's an interesting story across the board. Like I mentioned on the show a few shows ago, I think if you do a documentary and you do all three storylines, Caleb's, Ryan Poe's, and Justin's, I think it's, especially if they all come out to be, successful in the end, I think it makes a great documentary, movie, or whatever the case you may be when it comes out. How do you feel about that? Do you think that Ryan probably he knew what he wanted to do for real? Like we were fooled.
Yeah. So I think I said it a lot, honestly. I said it on Making Monsters a lot. I said it on Helmets and Heels a lot, that we've got, and every year Ryan Poles has proven that he's a character guy. He proved it when he didn't draft Jalen Carter. He wants good guys on this football team, and obviously good football players, but good people. He is such a people person that he doesn't want to get these guys on here that are going to be negative energy into the locker room. The Bears have had too much of that. Too many guys that, have sat out and
names, Chase Claypool,
asked for a trade or whatever the case may be. And you could tell he's trying to change not only like this into a winning football product, but also an organization where you're finally talking about it as like, wow, this is a ran organization. This is a team that stand behind each other no matter what. There's no locker room drama ever. Like he wants all of these things, and when they coincide all at one time, obviously that does help your product on the football field in most cases too. So I said so many times that I was like, I would not doubt if he truly already, just from watching film and watching Caleb in college, had an idea that he loved him as a football player. I think I truly think he had to figure out if he liked him as a person. Yeah. And everyone here in Jacksonville thought I was crazy. They're like, there's no way they'd pass on Caleb just because he doesn't like his personality. And I was like, I promise you he would. Like if he had a few meetings with Caleb and Caleb was this arrogant, cocky, like
over
in
the
your face. Well, maybe I'll pull an Eli. Like if it was kind of that type of situation, I truly think Ryan Poles would have traded that pick and been like, well, we'll just run it back with Justin, you know. But
yeah.
and I think I just think that for him, he really truly wanted to evaluate and see the type of person, the type of leader, the type of teammate, because this is a decision that he's making for, yes, right now because we want to win, but also for the future. Like they want a quarterback that we're talking about for 10, 15 years, because it's just been this revolving door outside of that. So I do think that he probably had in his mind, this guy is a phenomenal football player and I love the football, but I just need to figure out the person.
Figure out the person, understand the culture fit, and that's explained. Like I said, that brings closure. X Twitter, whatever we're calling it today, went crazy when I suggested that. Now after the Caleb pivot interview, and Caleb came out and said he was shocked when he got the news that Justin was traded because he hadn't done his 30 visit and they didn't have his medicals. And so that sparked my intuition, that sparked my analysis, my analytical mind, and saying, okay, hold on a second, let's examine the timeline. And now again, more conversation about when he knew coming out. It doesn't make it a bad thing, but again, I think it makes it an even more interesting story to follow all three storylines and take it all the way to the end to see how it plays out. I think it would be a great thing. 2020, what is this, 25 coming up, 24, 25, 2026, whatever, Bears, Steelers, Super Bowl, Justin versus Caleb. I'm here for the drama. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I'm here for the drama. I'm here for the storyline, all that good stuff. Listen, we gonna
would love it.
Right. The more drama, the better. Other thing. Go ahead.
I'll tell you real quick, just because so there's a guy that I work with at 1010XL. His name's Denny Thompson. He runs an organization called 6 Points. They train quarterbacks. He has a lot of guys. Mac Jones is one of his guys. Anthony Richardson, Gardner Minshew, a ton of guys that are in the NFL. Some college guys. Carson Beck, quarterback for Georgia. Caleb is one of his guys. So Caleb's been here in Jacksonville all offseason training with Denny and some of his people. And so it was like end of February. I can't remember, when did we trade Justin? What do you remember?
It was March.
Yeah, like
March. Matter of fact, it's funny. It was March 16th to the 17th because March 11th is when we made the DJ trade the year before.
Yeah. So it was like end of February, beginning of March. And Denny comes in to do one of his hits on the radio, and the show that was on happened to be talking about Justin Fields and Caleb Williams, and that was when all that drama was going on. So they were just kind of talking about the subject in general. Denny only heard a little glimpse of it, and he was like, "Oh, was the news announced?" And I was like, "What news?" And he was like, "With Justin." And I was like, "What about with Justin?" And he was like, "Oh, never mind," and like kind of left. Denny. And like March 1st already knew Justin was gone. And so he ended up telling me later, Caleb had already pretty much been told the Bears were drafting him. They're not allowed to say that, but he was like his camp, his people, Bears have already been in contact and he knows he's going to be a Bear. And this was like March 1st, 2nd, 3rd. So when I heard that, I was kind of like, oh, okay. So why are they not trading Justin sooner? And that's when all of that stuff came out of like, all right, what are they waiting for? Come to find out, it seems like Ryan Poles was just trying to find a spot where he had a chance to start. But it was wild, and there was like so many things I was hearing during those couple weeks of, okay, I just feel like I know Ryan. I do believe Ryan Poles. He's been honest about everything, and when people are kind of like, oh, there's no way he actually means this, but everything Ryan Poles has said. He tells you like, oh, okay, we're going to get a veteran safety because, Eddie's gone. I want one with experience. We're not going to go get someone young and flashy and one of the big name free agents, but we'll get someone in free agency. He did that. He's talking about he wants to send Justin to his place and do good by Justin. He did it. Like, there's just so many things that he's done right, and that's one of the things. But that whole situation was so wild to me when it came to Caleb and Justin and what Ryan Poles wanted.
See, I said this when I talked about the timeline. I said, as we talk about this, we discuss it more and more over the course of the next 6 months. The timeline is going to come out, whether via sources or whatever the case may be. And you just move my timeline back. Really, what I'm saying, sarcastically, I would say December 31st, when we secured the number one pick, he knew. But in reality, I was somewhere. You can start with March 16th or 17th, whenever the announcement happened.
Yeah.
You go back to the last week of February, the week before they go to the NFL Combine, and you're saying around the first was the announcement made, blah, blah, blah. Like if even if you go to that and saying somebody knew, somebody else knew, they knew in February. Yeah. So my only question is, if you're watching the Ryan Poe's timeline and you want to nitpick it, right? You're an investigative reporter or whatever the case may be, and you say, okay, February, if you make a move in February with Justin, because my whole thing is, the business side of it is this. The later you get in the timeline, the delay in the timeline, you give up leverage, right? Especially when we did 5 or 6 quarterbacks in this draft, and there was like 3 or 4 free agents. There's 9 quarterbacks going somewhere. You had to make an early move in order to get true. I'm not talking about the trade, what's best for Justin. I'm talking being a shrewd businessman and saying, I'm going to do what's best for the Bears, and I'm going to get as much draft capital as possible. Because again, the fans want to believe so bad that he had to be trashed because we got a 6 for him. No, it perhaps, and there were 4 other teams rumored, if you go January, February, perhaps you get more value. And like you said, Ryan, stuck to his guns. He stuck with what he said he was going to do, or he had it in his mind of, hey, I want to take care of Justin. And somebody even brought up the Justin appearance on the St. Brown's brothers podcast, what happened sometime in February, where he talked about Pittsburgh, and he mentioned Pittsburgh as his preferred destination as far as stadiums to play. And he said something. When he removed the Bears from his social media, is like, come on, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, were we being played this whole time? I think it's entertaining to know, not from a being bitter standpoint, anything like that. I want people to misread it and diagnose. I'm being a media guy. I'm being nosy. I want to know, like, what was the real deal? I want to know the behind, because we're out here. Imagine the story. I can see the documentary where they have on one scene us cussing each other out on X and Twitter, going crazy. Your mother's this, like, your dad, you're not worth the, you're the scum of the earth. And in the back end, they knew the whole time. That to me would be a funny documentary. So, you know what I'm saying? Having fun with it. Excuse me. Excuse me. So, Julius, let's see what we got in the back end for him. Taylor, this is what we call a DM section. So we're going to slide. Hopefully, you know what I'm saying? Hopefully the DM setup ain't nothing offensive. I had to think about it. Go ahead. I think about this because I got to be sensitive to go slide with it. Let's see how it happens.
Like some crazy DMs or what?
Very.
Surprises or no?
It's like blue check marks?
Yeah, like
people who be sliding and I'm like, wow, y'all fuck with me like that.
Anyway, thanks for the program. See, Taylor, I told you I normally have knuckle draggers on the program, and I don't think about, like, is things appropriate? You know what I'm saying? Are they PC enough? But I'm glad we didn't do anything to scare you away right there, man. That was a nervous moment. That was a nervous moment for me. What we got going on, and we got questions, we got comments we want to address, and then we're gonna get to the Drunk Uncle Award. And get Taylor out here. Cornelius Sales says all the pressure is on. We didn't talk about that, so it's an opportunity. Flus, you know what I'm saying? How does Matt Dirty Clop Flus come out of this situation unscathed after his two coordinator hires? You can put 3 games on them. Like, What is your take on Matt Eberflus going into the season?
Yeah, so I actually am like opposite of a lot of people when it comes to Eberflus. I was glad they kept Eberflus. I think that there was a lot of things that weren't in his control last season. We could talk about the hirings, and that's probably to me the one big knock, but when it comes to what happened last season and kind of the way that things went down, you can't predict that your coordinators are going to do some sketchy stuff. We don't even know what happened still with.
I want to know about that
The
too.
defensive coordinator, running back coach, like we don't even know. Just weird
Add
stuff.
that to the documentary. I want to know about that too.
Because it wasn't like they had a history of weird
Right.
things that he went and hired. I don't know. But to me, when you go back and you look at this last season and you're looking at Eberflus, number one, he's a defensive-minded coach. We knew that when they hired him. So to expect Eberflus to have any effect or control on the offenses just to me doesn't really make sense. And unfortunately, with Luke Getsy, kind of fooled everybody. And I think a lot of that is just because Aaron Rodgers was his own coordinator and Luke Getsy got to hide behind that a little bit. So we got fooled. But when you look at everything he kind of had to deal with when it comes to, like I said, no defensive coordinator. So not only are you having to be a head coach, you're also having to be the defensive coordinator, and that's your side of the ball. You're good at it, but a head coach shouldn't have to be that position coach too. Like he has a million other things he needs to do. So between that and then obviously the running back coach too, and then Luke Getsy just kind of bombing, and then Justin gets hurt, and we just started seeing all of these things kind of unravel. And so I think that a lot of it was not on Eberflus. We just talked about how many moments were a play or two away from them being a 9-10 win football team. And honestly, it's crazy to think about that, like where we would be right now if they would have finished the season at 10 wins. How much different would things look right now? Would they have kept Justin? What really would have went down this offseason if they ended up making it to the playoffs and winning 10 games? So it's crazy to think about that. But I like Flus. I like that they're giving him one more chance. I like that they went out and got Shane Waldron, who has experience play calling. That was another thing Luke Getsy didn't. So you're taking a risk when you hire someone who's never play called. But I think that with Shane Waldron obviously having experience, that already is going to help Flus a little bit, because it's not him kind of like gambling on anybody. He knows this guy can do that part of the job too. And then you also have a full staff finally, so that's good. But I do think it still is a moment where you can talk about him being in the hot seat, because if the Bears this year, with, like I said, on paper, this roster and what Caleb is supposed to do, if the Bears win under 7 games, I think we honestly are talking about a new coach.
And that's not what we really want, because now the cycle continues, right?
Yeah.
Of quarterback mismatch with the coach. I thought it was odd too. Again, when we go back to the decision, you know what I'm saying? Some of the breadcrumbs, and everybody now, hindsight being 2020, yeah, it was obvious. Anybody knows ball knows this, that, and the other. I think the breadcrumbs were, you know what I'm saying? Okay, you could say we match a offensive-minded coach with a rookie quarterback, and we do that. That's still somewhat of a reset. Now we're, I love the part that I'll give him credit for more than anything was, despite all the turbulence over the last 2 years, that not losing that locker room, that part goes a mile for me. But what balances it out for me is I was the biggest Luke Getsy critic probably on YouTube, because, week after week, and this is what we do during the season, is break down the tape. And I actually did a first drive, first 15 comparison during the season between Shane Waldron and Luke Getsy, common opponent. I think it was against Detroit, where I showed, okay, this is Shane Waldron's approach to the same opponent versus Luke Getsy. I want y'all to see a grown-up offense and how
it's supposed to look like.
What is it exactly? What is it supposed to look like versus this team? And want y'all to see. And I think I did about 2 or 3 of those against a common opponent, because I thought it would be a great comparison to do. What else we got back there, Julius? I want to make sure we respect the time.
How many screen passes did you count for the season?
Right. You said what time? Well, how many screen? Oh, yeah. We gave up on screen pass counts and all that. Screen pass tracker. I think I was done with him when the explanation was, one, I heard a reporter said, Brad Biggs said, those RPOs. And I did a whole show because I was so frustrated. I was so irritated by those being called RPOs. And I was, from a press standpoint, that's acceptable. But he got behind the podium and doubled down that those are RPOs. And I'm like, okay, yeah, they could have been RPOs. However, you can have a different route combination off the RPO. They don't all have to be a quick screen and something that right there, the other, right? So you're in control of that. That's part of install, implementation, game plan. You do all that. You don't leave any stone unturned. And I don't even want to get into the third and fourth and short stuff. That stuff is crazy. Big shout out from Bach Yassin, my guy Baki, saying shout out to Taylor. Keep up the great work. See, you got fans over here at CD360. They already tapped into you. Who else we got back here? We got about 5 to 7 minutes. I want to get him 1,000. He said, Zeke TV said, I'm 1,000% sure he meant what he said. Let's not backpedal. When a man tell you his words, he meant every word. I think he's saying he knew that Justin was out from the beginning. Listen, I've accepted it. I just want to see the movie now. Yeah. I just want to get with people to put together the documentary to cover the whole Uncivil War, all 3 storylines. And I definitely want a Chicago Bears 360 with Coach T clip in there where I'm going crazy on a quick clip of what are we doing? We gotta keep you know what I'm saying? Clip me up in there and again, show it like that and whatever the case may be. Listen, I'm gonna keep my word. We're gonna slide to the Drunk Uncle segment, and we're gonna give Taylor the tradition of Chicago Bears 360. She gets to give out the drunk uncle or auntie. We never had a drunk uncle auntie before. We never had one of the drunk uncle or auntie award. Let's slide over, Jules. Let's do it.
Anything is possible, got feelings in my cup. I see everything in double, got 2 blunts, I'm rolling up. I've been walking in a circle, no expression, now I'm stuck. 30 for the client, cough like Giannis chasing bucks.
Shout out to Gito Crash on YouTube for the Drunk Uncle segment intro music. You know what I'm saying? I hope you was bobbing on the back screen. By the way, how is it in Jacksonville right now? That's one of my favorite cities to drive to from Atlanta. It's only a 4-hour drive.
That's not bad at all.
Great place to see the Bears games, by the way. We always pack that stadium out. We usually account for more than 50% of the fans when the Bears play Jacksonville. I don't know if we have one of those coming up, but definitely coming back.
Don't let my Jags people hear this, but honestly, almost every team that comes here has more fans than what. And Jags have a ton of fans. They're loyal, they're committed, but it's such an easy place for people to travel because it's not super expensive. It's not, especially when it comes to locally, it's an easy flight for Pittsburgh fans. It's an easy flight for any end division people. So it always ends up being, and I guess also Florida. So people are like, let's go to Florida and, have a good time, go a little crazy down in Florida. So they're always, no matter, like every team, I'm like, why are there so many fans here of every other team the Jags play? But I think a lot of that too is, the Jags have been in the same position as the
I got to plug there.
A lot of football games.
Yeah, I got to plug the restaurants, the beaches. Matter of fact, it's on our list for our summer trip this year with the kids. You know what I'm saying? We're like, do Jacksonville, Destin. What's the place in South Carolina? Something Hills. What are we doing? So it might very well be Jacksonville. I love going to Jacksonville. It's a great place. Reminds me of old Atlanta. Anyway, Drunk Uncle, Taylor Dahl, you're up next. You're in the hot seat. Who's your drunk uncle or auntie?
So what am I calling out here?
So it's like sometimes people get a little frisky online. When I frisky, I mean they get out of hand. You know what I'm saying? Pot shot. Sometimes in the media, people do something crazy.
Yeah. You
got to give them the Drunk Uncle Award. Like we've had some very infamous drunk uncles. You know what I'm saying? Greg Braggs gave out a great drunk uncle early in the year. Lawrence Holmes gave out a pretty good.
I faintly remember Braggs. What was his?
Braggs was great. So Braggs had this guy. He had this guy that got personal, really personal on X or Twitter.
Oh, yeah,
and what we did was the guy had his Twitter hash was number one jerk or something like that. We keep giving him promo, but it's okay. That was part of the stick, right? So he got real personal. So what we did was we flipped it. He gave the guy Drunk Uncle, but what we did was we told the audience to go patronize his business in Joliet. Right. So this guy started getting all kinds of calls for jerk chicken orders and all this other stuff. And then he found out a week later where it came from. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So shout out to Bragsy for that one.
I know, like I'll be honest, like I wish I had like an actual like a person, a name to say. I feel like in my head,
You can give it to a whole base. You can give it to a whole fan
and that's what I was
base.
about to say. Like I'm going to go broad, and I'm just gonna say like my drunk uncle / aunties, because there's probably both there, or anybody who are all of the people that are using like the Caleb's fingernails emotions pink phone case as like a negative. It's driving me insane because I just saw a clip 3 days ago of LeBron James throwing a full-on grown boy tantrum in a basketball game, stomping his feet, and people idolize this guy. But because Caleb had a pink phone case at a basketball game, people want to say a bunch of stuff. And so anybody to me, I honestly start muting people on Twitter if I don't like
my favorite button.
like mute. So a lot of the people that say maybe mean things to me or that, go too far with stuff, I usually just don't see their stuff anymore. So to me, it's that. Like, I feel like stop using a color of a phone case or whatever as a way to hate on a player, because one of the things that I think we've learned a lot about Caleb this last couple months is just like, number one, the dude loves football. He is obsessed with football. That's what you want. I talked to Coach DiFilippo not too long ago. Most people remember him when he was with the Bears, but he was there with Justin's first year. And one of the things he said to me that stuck out so much was he was like, being a quarterback in the NFL is not a job, it's a way of life. And you're not going to win a lot of football games until you find that quarterback who looks at it that way. I think Caleb looks at it that way. So to me, all these drunk uncles talking about who are insecure about a phone case and fingernails, that's my
phone cases, fingernails, and like that's madness to me. That's why we never addressed it here. I didn't care. Like we didn't care. Win football games. And listen, it's 2024. I never thought bell bottoms and stacks were coming back. You know what I'm saying? Like, listen, I'm not gonna go out here and paint my fingernails, right? But as soon as he beats Green Bay and he puts F Green Bay, it's gonna be
comes out
and then wins, it's gonna be legendary. So
if he comes out and like we see he beats Green Bay and in the presser he shows us his nail and it's like FUCKGBAY, people are gonna go wild over that.
It's crazy. This guy's a legend, but you gotta win. You gotta beat him. And in some circles, you got to throw for over 450 yards and 5 touchdowns. But you know what I'm saying? We're not going to put lofty expectations on it yet. Listen, this has been fun. I like to be a man of my word. I said an hour. This is right at the hour. So I want to say thank you so much. I like listening to you talk football. So please do me a favor. You got to come back. Got to come back. Got to update us. Listen. Coach can sit back and let Taylor talk football. You know what I'm saying? And then I'm gonna be reaching out to you for some of those plugs too. Oh, she's connected. And I need a real football job is what I need. You know what I'm saying? This is give me something to do to stay connected to the game. But yeah, we definitely gonna link up for sure. So y'all know what it is. You know what I'm saying? For now until later, it's past, present, future. We bear down. For Coach T, Taylor Dahl. And we'll see y'all next time. Bear down, fans.
Love it. Bear down, bear always is what I say.
There you go. See y'all next time.